it's not like the game mattered, more for developmental purposes, so we're good. How about yourself? Bears fared pretty well this week.
See, I remember telling you several times that the Bears are going to go undefeated. This is, of course, the first step to that journey.
They are undefeated in preseason, so I mean, can't go wrong there, right?
So, I mean, how the Bucks do? I wasn't.
I shut the game off. They were going down to take the lead in the last second. Yeah, I shut it off. I mean, Morales hit total leather. Kick was going at a awful trajectory, and then I turned it off. So I don't know what actually happened. He might have made the kick. No, not buying it.
I mean, we can give it a whirl, I reckon. Is it something that? Nah. You could have said. You see, usually when I start a story, that actually, I always start off with there's 8 of them. You see, and then kind of.
Yeah, you slowly build your ball of lies to, you know.
See, that's another thing, and I've said this to many people. I said I've never lied. In particular, to women, whatever the case is, I've never lied. I exaggerate and I embellish, but I never lie.
Well, all right. Speaking of lying, why don't we go up north and talk about how well these? Well, before we do that, let's look at how well each of the Crüe's individual teams did. Let's see here. We do have the Bears pulling one out against the Chiefs. The Broncos sticking it to the Cowboys. Jerry and Brian both conveniently aren't here today, but Jerry's Niners get the better of the Packer backer, and of course, the Bucs fall victim to 2 turnovers that cost them late in the game. But once again, it's preseason. All that matters is, most teams leave healthy, and you got stuff you can build on. So, yeah,
but. So, granted, you had 2 teams. It's almost like now that truly would be like a circle of suck, as Brian, our Packer backer, would say, because you have the San Francisco 49ers versus, of course, the Green Bay Packers, and so it's almost like 2 negatives making a positive. They were like colliding, and it was just one of those things where somebody was bound to do something. But more importantly, if you actually look at that score again, the only real team that, of course, from ours that really won, because I don't really count the 49ers, they were playing the Packers, of course, was the Bears.
The Bears win twice that week, right?
Absolutely. No, they actually looked okay-ish from some of the highlights I was able to see. They looked okay. You could tell that there were certainly a few things here and there that they need to work on. The offensive line looked actually okay. They looked okay. There was a few times when they could have picked up a few blitzes or whatever the case was, but they were okay.
You know what I did like about the Bears game really is their linebacker. What's his name? Sanborn, 57. Anyway, yeah, he plays well side to side, and he makes a lot of plays in the backfield. He might not always make the tackle. He might not always, he had like 6 tackles, I believe, but he may not always make the tackle, but he's always there to force the issue. He had 7 tackles? Right on. Yeah, but he's always there to force the issue and force that initial step of the running back to, he's making a difference. And that's good if you're a Bears fan. You got another linebacker coming up, especially with rumors of Roquan Smith wanting to take his talents to South Beach.
I don't want to talk about that. Now, one of the things with that is you do have to understand that at the end of the day, the NFL, of course, is a business. But when you have someone with the production of a Roquan Smith, who literally is only one of 2 players, I think he was in the same thing with Ray Lewis and one of the, the most tackles and the most tackles for loss and things like that over a certain amount of time, 2-year period, 3-year period. You're in very, very exclusive company, and that's fine. And for some reason, the Bears have not decided to give him a gigantic contract.
Well, my thing with them is this: he's a top 10 pick, right? He's played to his contract thus far. He's not like he's injured. It's not like he's taking plays off. I think he's earned that money. I mean, granted, it's going to hurt your cap, but there's ways to manipulate that to, move money a couple years down the road. The Bears aren't in a win now mode, but you do need that leader of your defense, if you know what I mean. And Roquan's pretty much all you got left, right? I mean, you got to pay the man. And now I think you burnt that bridge. He's not going to play. I mean, he doesn't play this week. It's $520,000 fine.
So not only have they decided not to necessarily give him a big, fat, gigantic contract, which is a negative, but strike two would be the fact that if they actually do come through with that fine, be like, okay, look, Roquan, but let's talk about this. We're not gonna actually charge you this fine, but we could. And so if you actually charge that fine, then of course you are going to be burning that bridge, and then of course he's going to be like, you know what, I'm sitting out, I'm done.
Yeah.
But you have that defense. You have that leadership on that defense. I mean, he has had some serious production over the last few years. Why wouldn't you?
It just doesn't make sense to me. I get it. He wasn't drafted by this regime, if you will, but he's a top 10 draft pick. He's played like a top 10 draft pick. I get it. No, not anyone is bigger than the team, but you got to have some people to lead that team.
Yeah, but think about it. You have other players that have gotten some huge pay. Patrick Mahomes. Granted, he's a quarterback, it's a different position and things like that, but he is basically almost like your Patrick Mahomes of defense because he's been that productive. It's just one of the things where he's becoming the face of your franchise. And why don't you pay him? Why don't you pay him?
Are they? I mean, I say it all the time. Bears on a 3-year plan, but you got to start somewhere.
Do they think that this Sanborn kid is going to be able to take that mantle? You might be able to do that in a year or two, but you have somebody who not only has the locker room. He's got, of course, all the people that of course, respect his plays, respect him as a person, whatever the case is. So not only do you have that, but you have the leadership on the field, too. So there's really no reason why you wouldn't pay Roquan Smith. No reason. But if you want to go the NFC North, actually kind of get that out of the way so we can continue talking about the Bears.
All right, let's kick it there. Let me find it first so I don't give you some direct. There you go.
So in the lovely month of August, our Bears or their transactions they've been actually pretty active, actually. So, depending from, let's see. Well, first off, they actually removed Roquan Smith from the physically unable to perform list. He's no longer on the PUP. So, and now he's actually basically holding out, which, of course, it just doesn't make any sense. Again, and you don't want to franchise him per se because that's going to really make him mad because, he wants a long-term deal. I understand that. You want a long-term deal, security with guaranteed money, understandable. He's giving you the performance to be able to earn that. So they actually also signed, this is the Bears, of course, signed linebacker Javon White. They waived linebacker C.J. Avery. He was with an injury designation. I don't recall hearing anything about that. Let's see. They signed linebacker DeMarquis Gates. They waived linebacker Christian Albright with an injury. They signed defensive line Tevin Coley and waived defensive back John Alexander. Defensive line. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna attempt that name. And they have Michael Joseph and wide receiver Taji Sharp from non-football injury list. So the only real major news on that particular front, of course, is going to be your Roquan Smith being able to play. However,
but
there's no words. There really isn't.
If I'm the Bears, I mean, I can't find a trade partner right now. With this much turmoil, you're not going to find someone that's going to be like, I'll give you a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much tying your own hands.
And that's kind of the other thing too, because you were literally looking at somebody who could change the game in and of itself, for you.
So let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say they can get, I don't know, a second and a third round pick for Roquan Smith. Not that I think they could right now, but let's say they do. So you send Roquan Smith, pick up the picks, and you're back at square one, and you're relying on a young linebacker core to lead your defense. And it's just, you're either surrendering the season to acquire draft picks and telling your team we're not going to try to win this year, or you sign Roquan Smith and you try to do something. You try to make something happen, catch some lightning in a bottle. They got to do something fast, though.
Right. Now, here's the thing with that. So he could conceivably actually fit you a first-round draft pick. That's actually everything I've read. There's a strong possibility because of his production. Granted, but he probably could. Cool. The problem is you have such a young core, and you just mentioned it, the fact that you need that leadership, because if you look at that core, you have maybe, 3, 4 years, 5 years of experience throughout the entirety of the core.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of rookies, so you're going to need at least one veteran, one serious veteran that's going to be able to actually show you, look, be in this spot, do this, do that. Open your hips when you're doing this, do this, do that. He's the guy. So he's giving you production. He's giving you leadership. He's got the locker room. I mean, I can't not see any reason why they would not sign Roquan Smith to a long and pricey deal. There really isn't.
They have the cap room. I think it's just a matter of, trying to show who the boss is, really. Who's making the decisions here, who's in control. And unfortunately, with the Bears right now, they don't have much control over the situation. They either got to sign him or they got to take the loss on it.
Right.
So
that would not be a good thing. But we can certainly.
You might lose 3 games then if that happens.
You know what? That's actually a strong possibility. That really is. They might end up losing a game.
Yeah. Let's get to that other team.
Yep. Let's travel further north to, of course, Cheeseville. Green Bay Packers have won. Literally just one transaction so far throughout the course of August. That's, of course, safety Micah Abernathy, running back Dexter Williams were both signed, wide receiver Cyrus Mitchell, and long snapper Stephen Wordle were released. That's it, and we're moving on. No, they Mr. The Feel of Cotton, he actually had I don't want to say a good game. He had a Aaron Rodgers game where, he threw a couple things and they did a few things. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, they lost, and I thought that was quite lovely. However, he looks just like he would be. That did actually expose a few things, though. So their offensive line, of course, has a few questions. Their running backs have a few questions. Receivers, tight ends, things like that. There's, a few questions. So I think if they're going to try to be able to play back into any sort of a shape to where they're going to be able to have some sort of really contention for the North, even against Minnesota, for example, they're going to definitely need to be able to kind of sort of buck down and be able to actually have that type of chemistry that he's had in the past. So
it's preseason, and you're not going to see much out of any starters right now. We won't see anything until like week 3 of preseason, or the last game of preseason, I should say, because there is no week 4 anymore. But that chemistry is being built in practice. That's why they're going to, instead of having that 4th preseason game, they're doing joint practices with other teams. So you're going to see a lot of starters play 3-4 snaps, throw 2 passes, and be done. So it's nothing really to look at when it comes to the starters with these preseason games. You really got to look at your second and third, tier players. And Packers went toe-to-toe with the Niners. I mean, the Niners aren't a slouch team, and both teams have solid depth. But again, Green Bay's only going to go as far as Aaron Rodgers can carry him.
And at the end of the day, that's going to be basically it. I mean, you might have yourself, excellent wide receiver. If you want to talk about a receiver who can at times catch, but if you're not looking at any of the old yacker, any yards after the catch, if you go with a Mike Evans, for example, that you actually throw the ball to, and if he happens to actually catch it, which is few and far between these days, yeah, you just have to have that quarterback to get there.
Anyway, but yeah, Green Bay, like I said, it's either Minnesota's division this year or they're rebuilding. Green Bay is going to take the division this year till Aaron Rodgers leaves. It's going to be theirs if Minnesota doesn't do it this year. So Chicago's got 3 years.
Yeah, you could say 3 years, and if they actually do go ahead and sign Roquan Smith, then you got yourself some magical right there, where of course they're going to be going undefeated. You go further north, well, actually it's more like further west, I guess, from Green Bay. Of course, you go to Minnetonka, as we were talking about with our friends up there, Kirk Cousins and Crüe. So they've done one thing throughout August. They removed cornerback Nate Hairston from active non-football injury list. That's it. Moving on.
No, but right on. That was quick coverage of the Minnesota Vikings.
For example, you've in Minnesota, you've got what you got. Nothing spectacular, nothing out of the ordinary. You kind of got just I don't want to say necessarily a workman type of attitude or a workman type of a thing, but everybody is there. You do have some depth and some age with the group of rookies per se, and so you basically have what you have. You know exactly what your job is, and that's where it is. And you're right before.
That's what's kind of. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say you're absolutely right from before in the fact that this might be their one and only year to actually get that shot.
Yeah. The issue with teams like Green Bay and Minnesota is they're established. They're not trying to figure things out. They have their identity. They have the recipe for what they feel is success, and they're going to use it. There's no hidden, diamond in the rough here. They're not looking for anything. They're looking to improve on what they had last year and just go. And it's unfortunately in the preseason, that's pretty boring. So, I mean, you go to Detroit, right? You're going to go there next anyway, but that's interesting. That's why they're on HBO. That's why they're being followed, is because that's an interesting story because they're under immense change. You know what I mean?
Sure. I just put a little bit of coffee, so I'm just trying to clean that up.
All right, I'll keep talking. And and that's what it comes down to is, preseason's about building and bringing these young kids into the fold to where you can actually see what you have for the future. You got to understand that these new players to these teams aren't just trying out or trying to make the Detroit Lions or the Chicago Bears. These new players are putting together a resume and submitting it every single week for all 32 teams in the NFL. That's what preseason is. It has nothing to do with wins and losses.
Plus, you have a few extra leagues out there now. Coming back to the USFL, and I think, NFL Europe, of course. And if I remember, they even have in Mexico, and of course, there's that one thing in Canada.
Yeah. You know what's funny is the NFL no longer has the European League. It's the EFL now. They actually stand alone as their own entity. But, I mean, they just had their playoffs start this week. And that's another. It's spring football. So these players, honest to God, are just putting a resume out there to keep their dream alive. And luckily now there's so many more avenues for them. But, again, the Lions are interesting.
Speaking of Lions, they've actually been, I don't want to say active, but there's we got 4 things on the list. So they signed, of course, tackle Kendall Lamb and play tackle Zion Oblet on reserve retired. They activated safety C.J. Moore from active non-football injury. Let us see. Lions signed wide receiver Maurice Alexander and waived injured running back Greg Bell, and of course signed running back Justin Jackson and placed wide receiver Corey Sutton on reserve retired list.
Yeah.
So they, of course, that's going to be your pretty typical situation right there. This, that, the other. Okay, you didn't. You want to retire? Blah 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 blah. But
you know what?
Right to together a little bit of a something up there. Then hopefully they won't necessarily do anything this year because the Bears, of course, are going to go undefeated. So.
Yeah. So there is no quarterback controversy in Detroit, but Blow played well yesterday. 18 to 28, went to 141 yards. He rushed for 22 yards on 4 carries. That's more than, suitable to compete. DeAndre Swift rushed 4 carries, 20 yards. Again, 5-yard average. So the Lions, it looks like they're trying to establish an identity, and it might be a team that's going to ground and pound and take us back to old school football.
Sure.
And I'd be okay with that. Coach reminds me of Bill Cowher anyway.
Here's what gets kind of. So Detroit is, because they haven't been very successful over the last,
ever,
literally since like the 20th century. If you want to be able to actually start yourself with an identity, you might as well go old school. You're absolutely right. You got your ground and pound, you got your running backs, you got your, hey, it's 4th and 2. What are we going to do? Oh yeah, we're going to run. Cool, I get it. But then you have a quarterback who could conceivably run and make some moves and stuff like that to extend a play, but who do you have to actually throw the ball to? He's going to have to run for himself or whatever the case is. So you're kind of like, when you bring in both type of situations, you have a modern quarterback with a old school mentality. Who knows what's going to end up happening? You're going to have a hybrid that might actually end up being successful.
Well, they're not rich in talent in the wide receiver room by any means, but Kennedy had 100-some yards yesterday. I think he had like 8 catches for 104 yards. That's not a slouch day in preseason when you're only playing like 5-6 series. So he's a second-year man, so you might have talent there sitting in the wait. But like I said, Detroit's an interesting story because you don't know what you're going to get this year. Mm-hmm. Is Jared Goff going to be an actual quarterback this year, or is he going to find himself sidelined by midseason?
It's a good question.
So
very good question because you never know who his backup's going to be. It's going to be so-and-so. It's going to be such and such. They don't have a Cordell Patterson out there, so who can actually throw the ball to himself while defending himself. But
I'm not going to do the playing with himself joke. But anyway, you got anything else? Any other big news coming?
You're traveling down that road, straight path. Let's just go immediately to the left on that one.
I'm always traveling down that road.
So anyway, we're going to have to move on from that because there's a couple of comments. So we do have a few, I don't want to say highlights, but things like that with the Bears. Game-wise. So game-wise, Justin Fields, I would say, there was a few throws that were a little bit more on the impressive side, and the fact that his development's actually come quite a way. Instead, it was one of those almost like a Jay Cutler kind of a thing where Jay Cutler, of course, had that arm and that attitude where you have a 6 or 8 inch little gap right there. He says, "I can make it in there." Majority of the time, he didn't.
Talking about the Mooney pass or the Mooney, the pass to Mooney.
Yeah. So
I don't think it was. I don't think it was an erratic pass. I just think it was poorly placed. I mean, the timing on it was good. He hit the receiver in stride if it was in the right location. If he would have dropped it over that inner shoulder instead of going over the outside shoulder, he's still running. So it's just placement in that situation. And it takes a good quarterback to be able to make that decision and get rid of the ball. Decision-making and being able to process the defense is where these quarterbacks have trouble coming into the league. Mm-hmm. And that's going to take snaps. And Fields will get better as the season goes on, but that was a good throw. It was a good pass. Good decision.
And so, but with the idea of that receiver still running after about a day or so, I don't know if that's going to necessarily be accurate, but no, you can see how he's to a point, I guess, somewhat mature in the fact that he's not zinging that ball in there. He does have a little bit of touch these days, and placement. As soon as he actually gets that whole placement thing down and stuff like that, um, I hate actually saying this is one of the things that like Aaron Rodgers does well. But the fact that him and like Tom Brady, they within scheme never necessarily threw it to a person, but to an area, a window.
Yeah.
So, but with Aaron Rodgers, for example, he's actually been able to kind of sort of take that to the next step-ish, and the fact that not only are you throwing it to an area, not a person, but you're placing it where it should be, could be, ought to be. And so Fields can get to that point. I think it's going to be definitely.
And the only way to get there is to make those errant throws and those bad throws, and no better time than doing it than right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't want him doing it in the regular season, but he can do it all he wants right now. It's going to take him time to get the game speed, to get the, proper angles and that, and know when to release and where his release point should be. It's not just throwing the ball in the backyard playing catch with your old man. It's got to be precise, and it's got to be released at the right time.
Yep. And if you're looking at like rushing, let's see. You had, of course, Tristan Ebner, 6 carries for 31 yards. Receiving, actually, Tajay Sharp, 2 catches for 44 yards. Defense, Sanborn, of course. You had 50. You had 5 tackles, 1 interception. I mean, you had some good things out there, right? Preseason, I will admit that. But there was a few other things out there that the Bears were doing. Okay.
Yeah. I think you'll be surprised by the jump that you'll see in Justin Fields by week 3 of the preseason. He'll get better each week, and hopefully in this new offense, they give him the ability to use the tools he has and get outside that pocket, because that's where he's lethal. So,
do you think there was any extra motivation because that one guy was sitting on the sideline over in Kansas City? Their former coach, Matt Nagy.
I don't think Matt Nagy's a bad coach. I just think he was in a non-win situation. He was brought into a defensive town with an offensive mind, and the offensive mind kind of had a brain fart for the entire season. And it just ended poorly. He knows football. He's going to do good things. He'll be a head coach again in the league.
Oh, okay, so there's a possibility. I think, and there were some stories, of course, coming out about the fact that he had such a massive ego that, he wouldn't allow himself to, look, quarterback, you're going to do what I say. Granted, you're more of a scrambler. Granted, you're more of a this. You can, do this and that and the other, but I'm not going to do that. I want to do what I want to do. And I think once he actually gets that in check, once he does, you're right. There's a possibility he might be able to get another head coaching job. But until he does, why don't you play the strengths? Why don't you play the strengths of your players?
I get it. What I don't understand is why, if you're the Bears organization, he has trouble with a quarterback like Mitch Trubisky, who's not a pocket passer, who's better on the run, who's better out of the pocket, and then you go and draft a quarterback like Justin Fields. So you were basically telling him, this is the type of ball we want to play. You're going to play it, or we're going to find someone that will. And he's like, I'm going to do what I do. Now he's in Kansas City with a quarterback that doesn't like to stand in the pocket, that likes to move around, So, but yeah, I honestly do think Matt Nagy will be a head coach in the league again. It might not be this year, it might not be next year, but there's worse coaches out there.
But this is actually kind of like a reverse type of psychology to where, before you had the quarterback that was learning from the coach. In this particular instance in Kansas City for Nagy, you have the coach who's going to have to learn from that quarterback because he's actually in that type of atmosphere, that stratosphere to where, Matt Nagy says, look, I want you to do this, that, the other. And what's Patrick Mahomes going to say? Oh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and just negate everything that's made it successful and just do what you want to do.
No, I get it. and it's going to have to humble him a little, right? But yeah, I think he'll be a coach in the league again. I mean, like you said, there's all these other leagues, so he might go into the XFL eventually, then work his way back to the NFL. But I don't think he's done.
Am I the only one who heard that?
The motorcycle.
So we're from the NFL to NASCAR.
I live on a busy road. But yeah, motorcycles are out this morning, so I apologize.
Best thing to do is actually just put a sign up. The fact that you're on the air and that you keep it down. So walk your bike. Just like I tell you, when you're crossing the street, walk your bike.
Right.
You want to go to the
so south? What else you got for us? We can go south. We can forget all the other conferences today and just go straight to the south.
Absolutely.
Anyone else matter? Not to me.
Before you start, let me go ahead and actually prep. Let me go ahead and prep for what we're going to be talking about. Okay, go ahead.
Not yet. We'll get there. We got time. I got a half hour now. We're forgetting all the other conferences. We're just or divisions. I got, But I'm gonna give you the scores real quick, and then we'll go team by team. I didn't get to watch all the games. I did watch some highlights this morning. Did watch the entire Bucks game. Watched a lot of the Lions game. Texans Saints. Texans come out in the end, 17-13. Last minute drive. Panthers win a game. It's preseason. Panthers 23, Commanders 21. Dolphins beat the Bucs. Falcons 27, Lions 23. Oh, the Falcons won a game. So let's talk about the Falcons game. Marcus Mariota comes in, goes 2 for 2 for 36 yards. Had 3 carries for 23 yards. Played well in his brief time on the field. Ritter didn't look too bad either. 10 of 22, 103 yards, a touchdown. Ran the ball, I think, 6 times for 59 yards, almost a 10-yard average for a quarterback's pretty impressive. Drake London got hurt early in the game and never came back in. Like I said, the Lions played well. Blow had a good game. Boyle did decent as well. DeAndre Swift averaged 5 yards a carry. And like I said, Tom Kennedy went 8 catches, 104 yards for the Lions.
So just to interject real quick, and I think we've talked about this in the past, I said, even though he's a Cincinnati Bearcat, beat my UCF Knights, this Ritter kid, this quarterback, I'm telling you, he's actually a lot better. He's almost like the diamond in the rough. Even though Cincinnati had an excellent year, last year, making it to the college football playoffs and things like that. But he's still almost like a diamond in the rough kind of a thing. And so once he actually starts to kind of get that name, because he's got a heck of an arm, pretty sharp as far as quarterback and things like that. So once he actually gets, of course, trained and things like that, I think he's actually going to be a pretty darn good quarterback.
Well, what was impressive about him is how deceptively quick he is with the ball.
Yeah.
I'm not talking throwing the ball. I'm talking running the ball. He's got good side-to-side quickness. He's got more than adequate speed to run the ball, and he's elusive. He's not the kind of quarterback you're going to see slide down right away. He's going to try to get 3 extra yards, 4 extra yards. And, I mean, he was quite impressive. I don't know if it was because he was going against, like I said, 4th, 5th stringers, possibly USFL, XFL players, but you can only play against who you're out there with. And he looked good. I mean, I think he could give Mariota a run for the money. They honestly made it an open competition.
Right. And, and you're right. He is deceptively quick. He's a bigger kid, too. I think he's got to be, close to, 6'5"-ish, probably in the 200-plus pound range. So, he's a pretty big kid. And when it kind of gets right down to it, if it's Mariota and him, because Mariota, of course, has a little bit extra, a few extra years, I would personally go with with Ritter, just simply because of the fact you have more of an upswing. You really do.
You might see that come later in the year. Mariota's got the presence that you need right now. You got a young team. You don't have a wealth of talent. I mean, I'm not telling anyone they don't know. The Falcons don't have a wealth of talent on their offensive or defensive sides of the ball. So you've got to build, and you might as well let a good quarterback sit and learn for a year, maybe 2 years if you can get that much out of Mariota. But yeah, I think you might see Ritter step in possibly this year, maybe week 5, week 6, week 7, depending on how well Mariota does and if Mariota can stay healthy. I mean, his style of play isn't really conducive to long seasons. He's a scrambling quarterback without a lot of size. So, but let's go to Carolina.
If you want, we can either go Carolina or we can go with the fact that the Dolphins beat the Bucs.
I didn't even get to that score yet. We're not even talking about that right now. So the Panthers game, the Panthers won. Panthers won. It's like I said, preseason, but hey, you take it when you can get it. Walker went 10 of 19 for 136 yards. Mayfield had an impressive debut, went 4 of 7 for 45. But Darnold kind of stole the show with 2 of 3 for 16 yards and a touchdown. He saw 0 ghosts and no interceptions. So, I mean, maybe bringing Mayfield in might be the competition they need to push Darnold back to second string. Darnold's going to be your second stringer. Mayfield's going to get the job. Walker might even take that second set of snaps from Sam Darnold. I just don't see it in him. He got a touchdown. Congratulations. Brown had 10 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. Wright led the way with receptions with 3 for 46 yards. For Washington, Carson Wentz went 10 of 13 for 74 yards. Sam Howell went 9 of 16 for 145. And Heineke went 4 of 9, 21 yards and an INT. How did Heineke give the Bucs so much trouble in their Super Bowl season? I'll never know. But anyway, now we go to the losing side of the NFC South. We're going to take a look at the New Orleans Saints. Ian Book is not a quarterback in the NFL. He played okay. I mean, he has the same issues you see with Kyle Trask, and that's decision-making, processing information. Ian Book's not going to get that playing time to learn that in New Orleans. They bring in Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton went 5 of 5 for 51 yards and a touchdown.
I don't want to talk about him.
That's pretty impressive. Andy Dalton went to an offense where he can be a game manager, and I think that might help.
I don't want to talk about Andy Dalton.
The ginger gunslinger costing the Bears, but he was in an offense where he had to be the man. You give him an offense like he had in Cincinnati where he can just manage the game, he's going to do something. I'm not saying there's a competition for the starting job. Obviously, that's going to Winston, but Dalton's not a bad backup. And if Winston goes down like he did last year, at least now you have a quarterback you feel comfortable enough to step into the game and lead a drive and manage the team. Smith had 7 carries for 30 yards. Jones Jr. had 7 carries, 27 yards. Nothing really impressive there. Receiving, again, nothing really that impressive reception-wise. Washington had the only TD. For the Texans, who beat the Saints, excuse me, Driscoll went 16 of 26, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Usually you throw 3 interceptions in a game, you're not walking out of there with a W. David Mills, 3 of 3, 14 yards. Nothing, like I said, too impressive there. But it's preseason. You're not going to see the starters do any real time there. So you can't really judge much on David Mills' performance or any of the starters for that matter. Like I said, the Saints play Dalton and Book. You have quarterbacks that can play, but they're trying to see what they have. Pierce had 5 carries, 49 yards. That's pretty impressive. That's a 9.8 average. That's over 9.5 yards a carry. If you can do that in the NFL, you're going to earn your spot on a team. Camp had 2 catches, 53 yards and a touchdown. Johnson III had 2 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. And now we're going to go to Traskville, USA. We're going to take a journey down south to the Bay to Traskville, USA. Kyle Trask gets to play the majority of the snaps for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, the Bucs look decent. They didn't look great. Some key people that I wanted to see play, they didn't play. I think the list of people that did not play was larger than the list of people that had active, and they have an 83-man roster right now. So, I don't know what that tells you. Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask had a decent day. He did have an interception that led to 7 points. He did have a fumble that he held the ball to. He didn't protect the ball well enough, one. And he probably should have just taken the ball and went down. You'll see quarterbacks with veteran experience like Aaron Rodgers just go down and take the sack rather than risk the chance of losing the ball in your own end. But in this situation, he loses the ball, it gets scooped and scored. So instead of going into the half with the lead, you're going into half with the deficit and have to come out and play catch-up. But he did it right. He had a 105 QBR. My issue with Kyle Trask is right now he doesn't have the skills to read a defense at the line of scrimmage, process the information given, and make decisions on where to go with the ball. He was averaging almost 4.5 seconds before the ball even left his hand. And if you have a good line, good on you. But if you don't, 4.5 seconds is decades in the NFL. You can't hold on to the ball that long. You can't go through your progressions once, twice, and then back again. You've got to know where the defensive back's going to be. You've got to know where that linebacker's going to be. And you got to know where the help is over the top. And until he learns that, he's just not going to get the reps he needs in Tampa. I don't think he's the answer for the Bucs. Lots of people are high on him right now because, like I said, he had a 105 rating, 258 yards. But I asked them if Josh Freeman, Mike Glennon, Trent Dilfer, if they had the exact same performance, would you be bragging how good the performance was? I mean, you can't cost your team, and that's what he did.
Right. Now, that's kind of an interesting question because, you know, if you've been in the league for an extended period of time, even if you've been in the league for more than 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, you should be at a different level. So, you know, taking like a Glennon, even a Freeman, you know, Freeman had some success and all of a sudden he just kind of sort of just literally just stopped. It was like you're writing a sentence, there's the period, and then there's nothing else.
Right.
But then, you know, even if Kyle Trask, 4.5 seconds is a long time. But you should at least know the players that you're actually going against. You're like, okay, well, linebacker so-and-so is over here. I got to stay away from here. Defensive back, cornerback, you know, this kind of guy is over here, so I'm going to stay over here. So my first, go to your right. Go to your left.
My issue is it's preseason. So you're not even seeing complex defenses. You're not seeing, you know, X twist, hawk stunt. You're not seeing anything like that. You're not seeing any Pittsburgh Steeler-esque tilt tackle, you know, blitz off the. You're not seeing it. And when you come up to the line of scrimmage and you have a basic blitz coming against you and it takes you that long to process that information, you're going to have issues. My issue is the Bucs signed Trask to his rookie deal. He's done after next year, right? Right. He's not going to get any playing time before then. So now you're going into a dead year, basically, without any knowledge of how good or bad your quarterback really is. And you got to make a decision.
Right.
I question whether Kyle Trask is going to be a Buck after next season. But who was him? Go ahead.
As a matter of fact, our friend Ryan here was talking about the AFC and just so you know, Ryan, we'll get to the junior league in you know, hopefully later in the year when we start talking about the AFC. But there is a strong possibility. It's almost like a Division III, but there is a strong possibility that Kyle Trask, you're right, will not be But then where are you going to put him?
But that's
You can either trade him to Atlanta, for example. You can either go to Indianapolis if you want to.
You can't trade him.
Well,
If you trade him, there is no value. He's a
sure.
he's it's not that I don't like Kyle Trask. I don't care. Really, he's not going to play on the Bucks this year, so he's irrelevant to me at this point, unless there's major injuries and there are no free agents available. Because I don't see them handing the keys to Kyle Trask, saying, "Here you go, you've progressed well enough to take the lead." Does that make sense? I mean, that's my concern. Is you put yourself in a position where now you're going to Blaine Gabbert, who played well. He went 5 of 5 for 56 yards and a touchdown, but you don't. Do you trust him to give him? You know, I mean, you don't. Anyway, it was only preseason. So, who did look good though? Rachaad White. Oh my God, he reminds me so much of Eric Dickerson. He's very patient behind the line of scrimmage, and then once he gets outside, he's a long strider. He runs like a gazelle. It doesn't even look like there's effort there. He's very, very fluid. He had 7 carries, 32 yards, averaging 4.5, almost 4.6 a carry. Keyshawn Vaughn, 10 carries, 51 yards, but he did have a touchdown. He also had like 22 yards receiving. Bucks didn't escape injury-free. They lost Giovanni Bernard to an ankle injury in meaningless time. I mean, he's your third down back this season. He's not going to step into that role if Leonard Fournette goes down. If Leonard Fournette goes down, you're going to see Rachaad White, I think. I think Rachaad White's proving that he belongs in the league, and he can play with the big boys. Good hands. Like I said, he's a long striding back. I know you've seen Eric Dickerson play and seen him run. I don't know if anyone of our people following us have seen Eric Dickerson. Do yourself a favor. Put the highlight reel on of Eric Dickerson, then go out and get a highlight reel of Rachaad White and compare them side by side. It's uncanny how much his running style is just so fluid. Yeah. Anyway, don't.
Ooh, that's a different kind of show, Ryan. Sorry.
So, Bucks had a lot of young receivers step up. Geiger went off for 4 catches, 52 yards. Stearns, a UDFA, 4 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Darden had 1 catch for 23 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Johnson went off in the first half, had 6 catches for 73 yards. Is he playing for his job with the Bucks? Is he playing for his job elsewhere? Is he putting tape out there and saying, hey, Tampa's just got a wealth of talent at the wide receiver position? I can play anywhere. Or are the Bucks, like I heard earlier today, trying to put tape together so they can trade him? The only issue with Johnson is he has no trade value. He's in his third year, going into his third year, and you gotta see what he is or he isn't. Like I said, Bucks didn't play any of their top 4 receivers. Evans was out. Gage had injury at practice. Julio Jones is still trying to get his bearings. Chris Godwin is back practicing but doesn't have, the clearance to play in a game yet. So this is when you're going to see all these young guys try to make this team or, like I said, put tape out there for everyone else. After watching this week, you might see a guy like Scotty Miller, who is a fan favorite in Tampa, who got the Bucs over the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl run, who helped the Bucs beat the Raiders that year, be outside looking in. You can't put a guy like Scotty Miller on the practice squad. He's going to get picked up. He doesn't have the value for trade, but he's not going to sit on a practice squad and not get vultured. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, there were several different players that that Brady's been playing with and stuff like that, even in New England, that they're like, okay, well, once you actually show your skill set, once you actually show your actual value to the team. Remember old Tom Waddle for the Bears back in the 80s and 90s? It was one of those. It was one of those things where you're not going to be getting like a blazing speedster kind of a thing, but you're almost going to be guaranteed a catch.
Right, and that's how Tyler Johnson is right now.
Right. So you do have that type of value with him and stuff like that, and teams are going to look at that and be like, okay, so we need somebody to go down the middle. We know who it is because he's going to catch the ball. He's going to get hit and he's going to go down, but he's going to catch the ball.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right in the fact that, yeah, exactly. Wes Welker is certainly going to be one of those, and we have several different ones that actually just show their value as a player. So that's what makes that guy so good.
Yeah. The difference between Wes Welker and Scotty Miller is Wes Welker would do the grunt work. Wes Welker would go over the middle. Wes Welker would put himself in the way of a block. Scotty Miller's route tree has one branch, and it's straight. It goes nowhere else. It doesn't even hook a little. It's just straight. And he's got flat-out speed, and he can burn.
Well, he learned that from Evans.
But he can't do anything else. And if Scotty Miller can't make this team on special teams, he's going to be. He might go to a team like the New England Patriots that know how to use a receiver that like Scotty. It's just not, I don't know.
When you basically say that he's like a one-trick pony kind of a thing, that actually sounds like a Mike Evans too.
Yeah, but Mike Evans' trick is catching 1,000-yard seasons.
Right.
8 of them. 8 of them.
Yeah, how many pass attempts? I can get 1,000-yard season if you're passing the ball 8,000 times a game.
He is the least thrown to in the NFC South of leading receivers. 8.
I'd be impressed if it was 9.
It will be.
I'd be impressed if it was
10. But what was nice to see about sorry, I'm almost done with the Bucs, but what was nice to see about the Bucs game last night was Cade Otton. He didn't have any really big splash plays, but it was nice to see a tight end downfield blocking. There was a pass to Tyler Johnson in the flat. Otton was coming across the formation, picked off 2 guys, was enabling Johnson to get the first down. And that's the kind of things you got to look for in preseason games, is those little things that make the difference play to play.
Is there a play in Tampa Bay where tight end blocks?
On run plays.
Receivers.
It's nice. O'Keefe played well in the offline tight end role, fullback now, if you will, whatever you want to call it. He played well. Good lead blocking. He's really not a pass decoy at all, but he played well. There's plenty of things to build on for the Bucs going into the next game. You're going to see Kyle Trask, and hopefully he has a better game. He didn't, like I said, he did not have a bad game statistically. It's the little things you got to look for going into the season that has to change and has to have better impact. But that's all I got for you, man. I'm pretty much beat. I stayed up late last night to watch the game. I'm not used to doing that. I'm an old man.
Well, that's true.
I work at 3 a.m. So, you got anything else for us?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff.
I do want you to know, we might have an AFC show coming soon to the Crüe. I'm talking with some people about putting it together. It's just a matter of getting all the contacts in a row, and hopefully we have something to put out there for that junior division in the AFC. So
it's almost like well, I don't want to say the Canadian Football League. The Canadian Football, some of those players are actually really good. But then you look at the AFC, for example, you're like, man, it's like Canada and the U.S.
A little south. But yeah, I get you.
No, but you have some decent teams, of course, in the AFC. It's one of those things that gives the NFC guys, they practice and stuff like that with those guys all the time. I mean, games all the time.
Right. Well, what'll be good, though, honestly, is if we get the AFC show, once we hit playoffs, we'll have a broader broader spectrum of knowledge to pull from, and actually get into real debates about, why this guy's going to be a matchup problem for this guy, or things like that. So hopefully we can get that together before the season starts, and actually have some good banter come playoffs. So.
Oh yeah, no, and I will say that the Bills. And the only reason why I like the Bills is because you have several UCF players on there. Gabe Davis.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you next week.
Don't be hating.
All right. All right then.